This investigative video on Pucky was first aired in December 2020. The story began on a rainy day in early mid-April last year. It wasn't the birthing season yet, but then there's always an exception to everything in life. But fortunately that exception happened to someone who's more likely to cope with it than many ones there, Dolly. Yes, Dolly had just given birth to a baby, probably on the same day too. The first thing I immediately noticed was that the baby wasn't as active like Dolly's other babies were. And that it was breathing quite rapidly too. Yes, it definitely didn't look like Dolly's typical, active and advanced babies. The ones like Pucky, Pucky that we used to see. And I think Dolly knew that there was something not quite right with her baby too. For she held onto it the whole time. And she even forewent goodies. Something quite unthinkable with Dolly. Her prime concern was her baby, and solely her baby at that moment. And Dolly remained to be very elusive and protective of the baby, and it wasn't until another 2 weeks had passed before I could finally get a better glimpse of the baby. And for a 2-week-old baby, it definitely didn't look like one. It was clingy, and could just barely held on to mum. That's when I knew this baby was likely to be a preemie. For it wasn't until then that another baby was born, and it was May already, the beginning of the official birthing season in Monkey Hill. And it's only then that I was convinced that it was a boy that Dolly had given birth to too. I called this little boy Pucky, for his face, like most premies, was puckered and wrinkly. Biologically, he's more like a 1-week-old baby, and he behaved like one too. But he definitely had perked up, and I think the extra care that Dolly could give to him had paid back. The odds were no longer against him. And so at nearly 4 weeks old, I finally saw Pucky begin to take steps, gingerly so and unsteadily too. He definitely was the slowest of all Dolly's boys we'd seen so far. But that didn't stop him exploring and being curious of his surroundings at all. He was slow physically, but mentally he's not. And so Dolly could finally take things a bit easy. Pucky had certainly turned the corner. And so that's our cute little Pucky boy, who's not wrinkly anymore. Indeed, he's good looking like many of Dolly's boys. I think he's one of the cutest babies born that year. Don't you agree? And Dolly had reverted to her usual laid-back approach to her boys. The way she took care of Pucky brought me a feeling of déjà vu. One could easily mistook that baby to be his brothers like Bocky or Spocky. There was always something so tender, so loving between Dolly with her babies that one could watch without feeling bored. Pucky was lucky to have born to a mother like Dolly. He wouldn't have made it with many others. by the middle of summer, Pucky had grown to a healthy and lively boy. And it wasn't long before he had to be reined in and to be reminded of his place, just like many of Dolly's boys before him. And that's when I knew our little Pucky had grown. He's no longer a fragile baby anymore. And I expected him to sail through smoothly his first year, and successfully so, just like all his older brothers did before him. But just before he turned 8 months old, he had a setback. Not a major one, but certainly enough to have shaken him, and visibly so too. Poor Pucky, he had either got involved in a row with a bigger male, probably from outside, or more likely, he had an accident, a fall perhaps. Poor Pucky, he's the first baby in my 4 years documenting our gang and a few others to have had such an extensive injury that young. He probably was becoming too complacent and too full of himself. That day, he became the small baby he was once again, at least emotionally. You could tell it wasn't really food that he wanted, for there were goodies everywhere. He just wanted to be with his mum, to feel safe and feel reassured again. He didn't dare to pick up any goodies to eat on his own. He just wasn't sure of himself anymore that day. Poor boy, he's scared and he just needed to be near his mum at all time. His confidence and his sense of security was no more from whatever had caused his extensive injury that day.
即係你下邊啊，即係你下邊魚龍柱啊，擺個煲嘅。
Finally, Dolly had had enough and could pay attention to her Pucky. Attention he has been longing for a while. He still looked a bit unsure of himself, and perhaps still a bit scared too. But he definitely behaved more like he had pulled himself together. Even a short spell of mum's loving grooming could do wonder to a boy. I hadn't thought much about his injury at all, as most monkeys heal skin and soft tissue injury extremely well. Indeed, He was almost all healed the next time I bumped into him. I thought there was no aftermath at all. Apart from a few scabs on his lil face, he looked he was on the mend. He was more concerned about the milk bar then, and so he should, for it would be off limits to him shortly, and forever thereafter. That was probably one of his final sessions there, for I hadn't seen him given any time there since. He was nearly 9 months old then. And that was Lil Pucky at 10 months old. There was definitely an asymmetry to his upper lip, suggestive of something lacking behind it. I had to confess I had completely overlooked this. The tumble he took in December 2019 did have an aftermath. After all. His upper front teeth had been knocked loose. And they were beginning to fall off one by one. By February the loss was almost symmetrical. It looked natural. It wasn't as obvious as it was in January. In fact, I didn't see anything peculiar myself at that time. Honestly, I thought it was just Pucky. He had an underbite, or mandibular prognathism. So I had been wrong on this. And I even had brushed off an observation to such by one of my very observant viewer, Mandy. Kudos to her, and now the evidence is irrefutable. Isn't it obvious now? So no, he wasn't born with mandibular prognathism or an underbite. Pucky had lost not 2, but his upper 4 front teeth from the tumble he had last December. Poor Pucky. Now the burning question is whether Pucky will grow his front teeth back at all. I know by observation that their deciduous teeth first erupt at around 3 to 4 weeks old. I ain't sure about their permanent teeth though. But a literature search has returned me a figure of around 15 months old for rhesus. So there could still be a chance for Pucky, unless of course, those were permanent teeth that had already been lost in that tumble. If that's the case, only Santa could help. Let's pray for him. But in any case, Arroz is the loser here. Not only does he has to eat his hat, he probably has to eat his socks. Smelly too. Let's pray there's a Santa for Pucky too.